So all of us are in some sort of relationship, right? As a mom, daughter, wife, what have you. But do we ask a question as to what type of relationship we have with our food? Believe it or not, we have a relationship with our food on a day-to-day basis, every single day. Have you noticed emotional eating, how you feel, and then you say, oh, I'm going to have a piece of chocolate and I'm going to feel good? I mean, that's what happens to all of us. And that's going to be talking today with Toni Marinucci. She is a registered dietitian who's going to join me right now. She's a TEDx speaker as well. Hi, Toni. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Great, good. I love the topic. I was just talking about, like, what kind of relationship we have with our food. We just, don't think about that. And all of us are. So here we have Toni Marinucci. She's a registered dietitian. She's a TEDx speaker. Anything else, please add on. I cannot go through all your resume, of course, but
Thank you so much. I'm a future author as well. I'm very excited to release my book this year. It's not ready yet, but soon.
congratulations. Yay.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Great. So let's just talk about what is this emotional eating we feel?
Yeah, so emotional eating is very normal. We all go through it. We're
Yeah.
humans, we have emotions, and some of us choose food as a coping mechanism. And honestly, it's a safer coping mechanism compared to drugs or alcohol or self-harm. So honestly, like, it's very common. I want people to just know that it's not bad, or,
Yeah.
it's about it that makes you a bad person if you struggle with emotional eating. It's just often a symptom or a side effect to let us know, I need to be taking care of me a little bit better.
Mhm.
And obviously, the other thing that we need to take into consideration is the frequency in which you're engaging in emotional eating, and if you have any specific health goals, and if it's getting in the way of you being able to reach them.
So, okay. So now, and you talk a lot about on your website, managing emotional eating with behavior modification. And let's say eating disorder would be, something that someone is has in some kind of an eating disorder. So how do we manage like our eating, emotional eating with the mind, right? It's a combination of training ourselves, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I will say there's a big difference between like a binge eating disorder versus an emotional eating. And obviously the severity in which someone and the frequency in which someone engages in something, it might be more clinically diagnosed like binge eating disorder. However, with emotional eating, either way, actually, I would just say there's a couple things that I like to have people to have set in. So the first thing is, if we're going to be managing with like helping with your mindset, right? Helping with the psychological things that get in our way to elicit behavior change. Before we can even address that, we have
Mhm.
to make sure that we're eating enough. So what I like to describe it as, there's physical hunger and then there's psychological hunger. If you can imagine a Venn diagram and they overlap, if you're really, really hungry and you're not fueling yourself properly during the day,
Mhm.
and you're also exhausted, drained, tired, stressed out, and those two things overlap, that's what we call the danger zone. So I want to first make sure that people are prioritizing, eating balanced meals every day. I recommend 3 balanced meals. I find that to be more satisfying, but everyone is very individualized.
Mhm.
So I find that if you're eating 3 meals a day, staying hydrated with water and all those things,
Mhm.
then chances are you're going to be able to identify that, oh, this is not physical hunger. This is straight emotional hunger. I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, I'm mad at my boss, I'm mad at my spouse, or whatever it is. And then we can clearly know that it has nothing to do with food. At
Yeah.
that point, the food isn't going to make you feel better, right? Maybe going for a walk will make you feel better. Maybe journaling your thoughts will make you feel better. Maybe some
Mhm.
deep breathing or meditation. Maybe just like changing location and getting out of the kitchen. There's so many things that we can put in place. But before we can even do that, we need to make sure that we're also fueling ourselves properly and not under eating during the day.
Wow. Yeah. No, no, I think so. So I think it happens to all of us. Like to your point, when I'm working at a corporate job and, your boss says something or your coworker, and then, you're kind of getting all fumed up rather than going outside to the park or kind of shutting it off, you go and you grab a piece of protein bar or some kind of a bar or something to kind of calm you down. So how do you, so that's that, like I said, it happens to all of us, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think that there's nothing wrong with, making impulsive choices to help you kind of feel better.
Yeah.
But what I find is the more that we can really be in charge of our choices and kind of plan ahead and really think about what is that we want and kind of take that moment to pause. So one thing that I teach my clients is I created the acronym PAUSE, and it's basically a method to help you kind of slow down if you're on the verge of emotional eating, or if you struggle with binge eating disorder and you're kind of on the verge of engaging in, overeating to the point of past fullness when you're not really hungry. Like you're just really trying to avoid your feelings. So in those situations, I teach the PAUSE method. So PAUSE stands for P, pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Assess how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You understand why you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
S, set up a plan. So that might be, changing location, calling a friend, going for a walk. And then E, execute that plan. And the more you just give yourself, it's like a 5-second pause. You really just have to kind of catch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, you can start to learn what suits you better in the action. So before you engage in that behavior. Then the second part to that is starting to recognize your triggers and be mindful of, you know what? I tend to do this every Friday night. Maybe I'm overbooking myself, not allowing enough rest. And so maybe I need to either delegate some more or, give myself like a pampering day or a pampering session in the week rather than most people kind of wait to the weekends to do those things. Like, what can I do so that I'm not every single Friday I'm not eating emotionally? Or a lot of people do it at nighttime, where the answer is often just go to bed. You want your solitude, trust me, especially in this pandemic, if you have kids and you're busy and you're always taking care of other people. I know you want to stay up later to have your solitude, but waking up and feeling refreshed and not being exhausted all day long is going to help you so much more. Your energy, your focus, your mood, and also, helping with the emotions.
So it's interesting you talk about pause. So let's say hypothetically, do you also recommend mapping the emotions when you say pause? Like there's an emotion of anger, there's an emotion of anxiety, there's all kind of emotions all of us go through. So should we kind of say, okay, if I'm anxiety, I go for chocolate, let's say. If I'm angry, I go for I'm just making it up right now, a glass of wine or what have you, right? So do you recommend kind of mapping the type of emotion that we have to the type of food, and then kind of understanding, what our behavior is, and keeping like a journal? I mean, do you go into that detail also?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's a lot easier when people are enrolled in my program. We work together for a minimum of 6 months. So we are mapping those things. We are taking inventory of those things. Yeah. Individual, I think that's a great idea, to definitely start to identify kind of the trends that are happening. And then that's the thing when it comes to, that's where setting up the plan and executing that plan, part of that pause method. That's why the pause method is effective, I believe, but it can be challenging because of the fact that your plan is going to be different based off of the time of day, your energy levels, what type of emotion you're feeling, what's it you, like there's so many things. So it's important to, start to pay attention to the trends, but also know that there's not one way to do something. There's many ways in which you can kind of pull yourself out of this verge of feeling stuck again.
Sure. And then there are many ways, like, do you do some breathing exercises, or is there a comfort food like having some tea? Right? I'm just kind of brainstorming and thinking out loud right now what people can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so it's up to the individual what works well for them. I'm a big proponent of journaling and a big proponent of meditation and a big proponent of movement. Now, it doesn't need to be like this high intensity workout, but I believe that maybe like going for a walk, or also just changing location. Like I said, if you're used to kind of emotionally eating on the couch, maybe it's to go into a different room, or maybe go for a walk depending on the time of day it is. And sometimes it is making yourself a cup of tea, or actually just making that conscious choice of, okay, I know I'm stressed, I know I'm tired, I am a little bit hungry though. So maybe I make myself something that's a little bit more nutrient dense and more well balanced. And maybe the component of it that you're craving, the dark chocolate, but with a piece of fruit and some almonds, like something
Yeah.
a bit more wholesome. So it's not so much, oh, I'm just going to have a little bit. And you try to tell yourself, I'm just going to have a little bit. And then you go back and you're like, I'm going to have a little bit. And I'm just going to have a little bit more. And it becomes very, so when you're in those impulsivity moments, nothing impulsive ever feels good. Even if you impulsively ate carrots and hummus, it's a healthier choice, but it's still reactive. So if it's reactive, showing that there's an emotion there. And that's where I think a lot of my clients actually benefit from going to therapy as well, because how much we can do on a nutrition basis and education basis, but really figuring out other ways to manage your emotions and really getting to the root, especially if you struggle with binge eating disorder. It's often a symptom or a side effect to things like anxiety, depression, trauma, OCD behaviors and tendencies. So I believe in like a multidisciplinary approach and will recover, whether it's from emotional eating or binge eating disorder.
So it'll be therapy, like some kind of a behavioral therapy or something like that, right?
Whatever the best fit for the person is. Cognitive behavioral therapy is something that I believe in strongly, but I just definitely think that as long as the person has a connection with somebody who helps them to process their feelings and acknowledge their feelings, because I think that's another reason. Emotional eating is basically we're dismissing our feelings. We're not trying to feel. We're trying to ignore. And that over time builds up. And so when I first started going to therapy, now it's been like 3 or 4 years ago, but I remember there was just like so much, because it's just like for your whole life, you just suppress it, whether it be like, through, keeping yourself busy, emotionally eating. I engage in excessive exercise. I thought that was like a healthy outlet, and like it can be, but when you get to the excessive points, that's healthy, right? So you need to kind of find, your person, whether it's a therapist, a dietitian, or a combination of the two, to really kind of help you just understand why you feel the way that you do and come up with a healthy strategic plan, like in those moments when you are feeling anxious or stressed or angry or fatigued or all the above.
No, I think that's a good plan. So, but you recommend as a dietitian, as a registered dietitian, you recommend 3 meals, not small. Some of the dietitians talk about smaller meals. So, is there any rule?
I think there's no rule. I think it's stuff of the person's schedule, what keeps them. For me, I actually prefer. I eat more frequently just because for me, I don't like to, it helps me not to overeat. It keeps my energy up. It keeps me focused. But it's really, I just say like 3 meals a day as a basis.
I see.
Some people, they might incorporate snacks in between. For some people, depending on their schedule, they might not be able to, eat more than that in a day. But I just like to go with, I think 3 meals a day will help guarantee that you get, the protein you need for the day, healthy fats, good sources of high fiber carbohydrates. So it will help with so many other aspects. And you'll also probably have less cravings that way. Because that's like what I said before, like we have our physical hunger and then we have our psychological hunger. Sometimes it's psychological hunger that's craving for something sweet. It makes sense if you didn't eat any complex carbohydrates today and your body's like, I want carbs, because you're not giving them the right sources of carbohydrates. So that can happen.
Got it. So, and what are your thoughts about mono diet? Like a lot of people talk about eating the same thing for a few days at the same time. I mean, is there any advantage to that? Let's say, as an example, if I eat 2 eggs and whatever, a bread and an avocado every day at noon, and if I do that, does that help, or you don't think?
Well, I think that if you're someone who there's no structure at all, all over the place, I think that might be helpful in the beginning. But variety in the diet is going to be best for your gut health. It's going to be best for cravings. There's just so many other aspects to benefits of having variety in the diet. I think maybe to get you started, if it helps you, like one thing I do with my clients is I help them to create their staples. So like their staple, like the 2 to 3 breakfasts that they often rotate, or 2 to 3 lunches they often rotate, and like, 5 different dinner things rotate, just so it's easier for them, because they're so busy and there's so much that they have going on, and myself as well. It's just easier to just know what I like and go with it. But then over time, you're going to get bored of that. You're going to want something spicy and interesting, and like I'm going to change it up. And so from there, I encourage like maybe trying a new recipe every week, or maybe if you're oatmeal, you usually put blueberries or banana. with raspberry and you put some chia seeds or flax seeds. Like you normally put peanut butter, but now you do almond butter. So like just to kind of change it up a bit, just to so I think in the beginning, maybe having, some basic things, but then over time, trying to create variety within that is super helpful in the long term.
Sure, sure. Someone had a question. You're welcome to ask questions. I see people joining us. You're welcome to ask questions. You can just put it in the chat window right there and we can take the questions. Can you see any question, by the way, Toni?
I think I can go back.
Okay.
Someone said that they have a question, but they didn't
say that. They didn't say that. Okay.
They didn't ask with that.
Yeah. And I see people joining right now. I mean, I just want to reiterate the topic. The topic is on eating, managing your emotional eating with behavioral modification. That's what we are talking about. I see people just joining right now. All right. Anything else you'd like to add? I'm just waiting for someone to ask a question. You're welcome to ask before we wrap up. No problems. But anything else? Okay. All right. Happy Women's Day. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
To all the women out there today. Absolutely. We had 2 women, amazing women today for our show. So happy Women's Day to you. What would be, all right, first, I'm sorry, we cannot add you in the video. It's too confusing. Please ask in the comment if you don't mind. And I don't want to start pressing the buttons and things kind of go out of control here. So how would you like to summarize, Toni, what we talked about today?
So I would say that I think we live in a society that portrays like restriction. We live in a society like diet culture basically tells us to eat less and exercise more. And I really want to challenge that and really want you to think of, nourishing your body, like I love the title of your handle. Like think of nourishing your body, taking care of your body. And if we're doing that, making sure that you're, eating throughout the day and eating balanced so you don't get too hungry and then overeating at night, that's going to be super helpful. Also, look at it's a lot more than just food, right? It's how you rest, making sure you're getting adequate sleep. You're moving your body in a way that feels good to you. So as long as you move, that's what matters. You don't have to do specific exercises. Yes, there's benefits to all of them. So just do the ones that you feel best with and continue with doing that. And they start to kind of like work together. You'll start to notice as you move more, you feel really good. Because you feel really good, you want to treat yourself really good. So you might eat a little bit more, you might eat more nutrient-dense foods. Then you feel good from that. That energizes you, do your workout. That helps you sleep at night. And it starts to be this beautiful snowball effect. And so I know it can be really overwhelming in the beginning, but start small and really just make that commitment to just be a healthier, happier version of you a little bit each day. And I promise you it'll accumulate over time. And if you really focus on self-care, setting boundaries, then the emotional eating will start to kind of manage itself. Like, yes, you have to be mindful and you have to make a conscious effort. But if you're putting things in place, like fueling your body regularly, like it's going to help in the long run.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead and ask the question. No problem. We cannot add you in the video. I'm so sorry. Just ask the question. That's perfectly fine.
I see that Sarah asked the question.
Okay.
When I'm sitting at the dinner table with my family, I just continue to eat if it tastes good. What are some tips to stop eating without getting up and leaving the table? This is a great question, Sarah. I work with a lot of moms who I love, first of all, congratulations for sitting down with your family and eating with your family. Like not many people do that. And I think that's super powerful because then you can have conversations with each other. It's a moment to connect. It's a moment to kind of go through maybe some things that, maybe the family's not. I know that growing up, like we were at odds a lot, but it was that time to really talk through some things. So good job for that. Now I would say a couple of things you can do. Number one, you can eat slower. Definitely eat slower. You can consider, I do love having the food kind of in the center on the table because I do find that it brings that family feel. However, if you wanted to take the food and leave it kind of like almost like buffet style, like away, like maybe on the countertop and everybody kind of makes their plate and then sits down, that create that pause for you to really think before you go up and get more food. So that's an option as well. The other thing you can do is just put your napkin, like if you're really done, put your napkin in your plate, right? And just like in your mind, I'm done. Then maybe yourself some tea, some water, some seltzer, and really just focus on that and engage in the conversation that's happening at the table. It takes time. Trust me, I work with a lot of people, and this is the dinner times with family is the hard time because there's so much going on. You're so engaged in the conversation. It's really hard to be on top of things, but just practice it. Just practice it and see how you feel. And let me know if I answered your question or if you have any follow-ups.
No, I think that's a great tip. That's really a great tip. Yeah. All right, Sarah, thank you so much. That's great. All right. Anyone else had a question? If you can't think of the question, you can send us a message, DM us, and that's fine. These are small session, guys. These are just every day. We bring little tidbits, small topic introduction, I should say that, right? Just to introduce all of you to healthy living, healthy eating, and mindfulness, and so many other things. Thank you so much, Toni, for being with us. I really appreciate your... All right. Okay, thank you. And wrapping up now, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. No problem. But I'm going to wrap up this session now. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.